Welcome to KetoMealsAndRecipes.com. As I mentioned in my previous video on how to make my sugar-free Bailey's Irish cream, today I will be using some of the Irish cream that I made to make an absolutely amazing Bailey's no-bake cheesecake mousse. I would like to mention and remind you that this cheesecake does have alcohol in it, so I suggest that perhaps you should only serve this particular cheesecake to adults. And in order to help you decide how many squares you can enjoy, the macronutrient ratio for this Bailey's no-bake cheesecake mousse is 7.9 to 1 with 4.2 grams of total carbs, 1.3 grams of dietary fiber, resulting in only 2.9 grams of net carbs per square. And these squares are quite substantial. As you can see by the ingredients on this table, this is not a complicated recipe, but you will have a couple things that you have to make, and I'll tell you which are optional. To begin with, all you need is some room temperature cream cheese, your sweetener ground to a confectioner powder, vanilla, knocked gelatin powder, or gelatin sheets if you prefer, and some boiling water. And of course you will also need to have previously made my sugar-free Bailey's Irish cream. And if you want a crust like I'm doing in this version, you'll also have to make my sugar cookie as a base. I would strongly suggest you prepare a full recipe of the sugar cookie dough, then weigh the dough and divide it into two. Wrap the unused dough and put it into an airtight freezer-safe container and freeze it until next time you want to make sugar cookies or some more pie crust. And by making extra, you'll have dough ready anytime you need. Alternatively, just make half the recipe and you'll have enough for one pie crust. After making the sugar cookie dough, press the dough a bit into a flat pancake and roll it between two sheets of parchment paper to a thickness of about 1/2 inch or 0.6 centimeter thick. Place this entire slab of cookie onto your baking sheet and bake according to the instructions for 10 minutes. When the sugar cookie is done, take it out of the oven and transfer it immediately onto a cooling rack and wait till it's completely at room temperature. As you can notice, I rolled my cookie a little bit too thinly at the edges and it darkened. So I'm going to cut this off because all I want is a very nice pale cookie in order to make pale cookie crumbs for this cheesecake. To crumble the cookie, just rub it between your fingers, or if you prefer, use a food processor to make coarse cookie crumbs. But don't overprocess. What you want are rough, coarse crumbs, not a fine texture like a almond flour. Then to make the crust, put the sugar cookie crumbs into a mixing bowl and pour in your melted, unsalted butter. Combine with a fork until all the crumbs are well saturated with the butter. Pour the crust mixture into your parchment-lined square or round springform pan. Today I'm using a square springform pan because I'm going to make squares, but a pie shape cut into wedges is also very nice. Now, spread out the cookie crumbs evenly over the entire bottom of your springform pan. Then gently press down with something like a small measuring cup, like the one I'm using, or use a flat bottom glass. When you're pressing down, press so gently. You want the crumbs to stick together, but you don't want them really hard and compressed. Because if they're really hard, when you go to cut it, rather than cutting through nicely, your crust could crack unevenly. And now that your crust is prepared, just set it aside for a moment. And one last thing, you don't have to pre-bake this crust. It's good to go as it is. Now to make the no-bake cheesecake. If you haven't done so already, first you have to bloom the gelatin. Into a small dish, add the gelatin powder and pour in the boiling water. Stir until all of your gelatin is completely dissolved and the liquid is clear. And set this bowl aside until the gelatin blooms or hardens up. It should take about 10 minutes. Next, to a large mixing bowl, or if you're using a stand mixer, use a paddle attachment. Add the room temperature cream cheese, and then whip the cream cheese to make it even softer and velvety smooth. Next, pour the sugar-free Bailey's Irish cream and your vanilla into the mixing bowl, and whip until well combined with the cream cheese. Don't forget to also stop and scrape down the sides and bottom of the bowl, and then continue whipping until the mixture is completely lump-free and very velvety. Lastly, add the sweetener which you ground to confectioner powder and continue blending into the cheesecake mixture. Then set aside for a moment. Next, into a second bowl, add the heavy whipping cream and whip to a medium stiffness stage or light peak stage. Ladle the whipped cream into the Bailey's cream cheese mixture and blend to combine. Now it's time to remelt the bloom gelatin and make sure it's at a nice clear liquid. Then slowly and steadily drizzle the liquid gelatin as you continuously whip. Pouring the gelatin in slowly in this way will prevent the gelatin from congealing when it touches the cooler cheesecake mixture. Continue whipping until well combined, at least 1 to 2 minutes. This will distribute the gelatin throughout the mixture and ensure the cheesecake sets well. Now, this is all there is to making the cheesecake layer. Everything is well blended, and it's time to pour this amazing velvety Bailey's Cheesecake Mousse into the parchment lined 9 by 9 inch or 23 by 23 centimeter square, or if you prefer, a 9 inch or 23 centimeter round springform pan, and then smooth the surface with your offset spatula. Before transferring your cheesecake to the refrigerator, place a tea towel over the pan. If you prefer, you can use cling wrap, but I'm using a tea towel because I want a perfect smooth surface, and I have found that on occasion the cling wrap may cause condensation, and the resulting moisture tends to drip on the surface of my cake as it's in the fridge, and I don't want that, so that's why the tea towel. And then just leave the Bailey's Cheesecake Mousse in the refrigerator overnight. This will allow it to set properly. This extra time in the refrigerator will also allow the Bailey's to completely permeate the cheesecake so that you will be able to get the full Bailey's flavor with every bite. It's the next day, so now I'm going to remove the cheesecake from the springform pan and peel off the parchment. Next, I'm going to trim the cake to make more precise edges and for each square to be nice and cleanly cut. So I'm going to trim the perimeter. Here's a little tip I'd like to share with you so that you can avoid the problem that I had when making this cheesecake. And what happened was, as I was lifting the pan, in order to transfer it to the refrigerator, the springform pan popped open and I lost about a quarter of the cheesecake. I was devastated. If I hadn't reacted quickly, I would have lost my entire cheesecake. So make sure the springform pan is well lodged into the bottom little groove area and that your spring is tightly secured. If I hadn't lost as much of the cheesecake mixture as I did, my cheesecake would be a bit higher than you see it here. By the way, the trimmings are for you to enjoy as they are part of what is considered a baker's bonus. After trimming the perimeter, the next thing I do is I cut the square in half. I have a really hard time eyeballing sizes and making sure everything is as I want it, so I'm going to use my plastic ruler, which by the way, I did sterilize. After cutting it in half, I cut each half into 2 equal sections. Then rotate your cake by a quarter turn and make perpendicular cuts in the same way that you did the first cuts. This will give you 16 more or less equal squares. You can serve the squares as they are right now because adding the chocolate ganache is totally optional. However, it only takes a few minutes and the ganache will elevate the presentation of this already tasty treat to be a dessert that looks as terrific as those that you would see at a patisserie or be served at a really nice restaurant. To prepare the ganache is very simple. To prepare the ganache, simply melt the chocolate and unsalted butter in a bowl set over a bain-marie or double boiler. Since I'm doing this little extra step, and to make it easier for myself and to have better control, I'm going to use a piping bag in which you've placed a very small narrow tip, or if you don't have tips, just cut a tiny opening so that you have control when you're pouring. Place your squares onto your cooling rack with a pan or dish or something to catch the chocolate. Then starting at one corner, drizzle diagonally in a quick continuous motion. You can drizzle the chocolate over each square in this manner, or if you prefer, you can use whatever design you like. For a bit of contrast, as well as the stripes, I also made a double heart design as an alternative to the stripes. Then just repeat decorating until all 16 of your squares have been garnished. Transfer the finished squares onto a serving tray and refrigerate for 10 minutes. This will allow the ganache to harden and for everything to set before you serve. Now comes the best part. It's time to take a wee taste. As you can see, this cheesecake mousse is soft, creamy, and very easy to cut. The mouthfeel is amazing. It's soft and velvety, and you can definitely taste the Irish cream liqueur. Although the Irish cream flavor does come through distinctly, it does have a very mild flavor that's in perfect harmony with the light texture of this cheesecake mousse. This cheesecake should be stored in the refrigerator, and it will keep well for several days. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you're new to my channel or have not yet subscribed, I would be really honored if you would. And also please press on the notification bell and scroll down to all. This way you'll be alerted when I post my next video. And please like and leave a comment. By doing this, you support my channel because the YouTube algorithm responds to these things. As a bit of a teaser, I have one more video to share with you that will also use my sugar-free Bailey's Irish cream. This video will feature a cocktail that is a special treat for St. Patrick's Day. And that'll be the end of the alcoholic videos for a while. So I hope you'll come back and check out that next video. Just as a reminder, the link for all mentioned videos and the link for the written recipe for this Keto Bailey's Chocolate Cheesecake Mousse will be posted in the description below. Until next time, have a wonderful day and stay well.